Jacob, I'm intro. We're not doing intros. That's why we can't have Jacob intro on the podcast, because we don't do podcast intros. But we're just sort of talking about. We're talking about stats. We're just talking about raw downloads. You know, I always talk shit about every other Australian fitness podcast, just bragging when they cross 100,000 downloads. So even Hyperformance podcast, all our data from like 2019 and previously, Libsyn just fucked us and completely erased us. So since 2019, I think, what have we had, like 350,000 downloads? Fuck me. Like that's so solid. Anyway, I was just sort of looking through the downloads of certain guests and like just objectively thinking about, because I haven't been that motivated to reach out to new guests. And we've been talking about this on the show. Like, we've been going for repeat guests because, and this is something that I still want to adhere to some extent, because I wanted to have like the GPP universe, and to not have someone intro themselves in totality every time they're coming on the show, to be able to get to know them, build a bit of a relationship, have them make at least like yearly appearances, if not more frequent appearances than that. But then also just thinking about the cloud aspect of things. My network has grown. I've had the privilege of being introduced to a bunch of people that we probably wouldn't have had as good of a shot. We always got surprisingly big guests on the show pre-clout, but it was definitely harder. Like, I just show up higher in people's IG DMs now. And I don't know, whatever. It's just a bit easier to network now with certain guests.
Who are we thinking about? Do we have a name or not?
A couple of people popped into my head, but I just need to sit down and have a real good think about it, because there's just, some really interesting people we could get on the show. And again, I'd find that interesting from a journalistic perspective, but obviously be sick for downloads as well. And like I said, the main thing is sick for the existing community.
Yeah, totally. And I think even that, like, I think even just the fact that the way you are approaching the way we get guests on, and not saying that people we're getting on don't have any like, like eyes on them or clout or anything, but I think even the fact that you're coming at it purely from a like, what is the most like adherent to the core values of GPP thing, because like realistically we could go out there and be like, who do we think is the person with the most eyes we could realistically get on, or we could be like, let's aim for, and we've had this conversation before, we've been like, how do we get Alex Volkanovski on? You know what I mean? We've been like, how do we, like, where do we go to get there? And we might do that. And by the same token, if the audience are sitting here listening to this going, please get Volk on, then we will fucking try again. We've tried already. But like, you know what I mean? Like, by the same token, if you said, I want to get Conor McGregor on the podcast, like, as much as it might never happen, we could sit down and be like, how do we get there?
Sorry, one other thing with guests that I think we were doing good before. Sorry, you're making a good point, but also one thing that Oscar did a good job of was always getting sick athletes on the show. Long-term plan is to obviously bring him back into the mix, and that'll be his job. But in the meantime, I'm going to need to, or maybe this can be something where Jacob sort of steps in and focuses on the athlete side of things. But just to sort of give everyone some context, why I was sort of bringing up this topic, again, we sort of have our boys' business meeting or like weekly brief before we start the podcast, but I just decided some of this stuff would be good to share with the listeners as well. Just talking about like when I did a SWOT analysis of my business the other day. Do you remember doing a SWOT analysis in like year 10 business?
Yeah.
Can you elaborate? What does it stand for again?
So it's, you analyze your own business, the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, and the threats. And being basically an e-commerce business these days, where so much of my audience comes from social media, and so much of my lead generation comes from social media. And it's been awesome. It's actually never been better, especially the last month. This has been my fastest month of growth and my best ever month of interaction. But this is always like TikTok's just fully getting banned. And I don't think Meta's getting banned anytime soon, but I've spoken on the podcast again about like Meta contracted as a company last year. I'm pretty sure. Maybe it didn't, but I read something on Reddit that maybe it did. And I'm like, oh yeah, like, I think it's naive to assume that Instagram is just going to be how it, well, of course, like it changes every fucking month. And just seeing so many, dude, I don't get too much anxiety about social media. But what gives me the most anxiety is just seeing the bloodbath around me. But I think this is the people that never actually had any traction still just complaining about the algorithm, because there's always those people, but everyone's like, oh, my interaction's gone shit. But then I look around and I see a lot of other people getting good traction. So, but yeah, anyway, I'm just like, oh my God, is the algorithm boogeyman coming for me? And whatever, people get shadow banned all the time. And I
feel like
that
you've earned your
so like,
stripes. Once you have like a solid base, I feel like for a few years that you've been on, I don't think like, even if it does hit, like a recession hits, you're pretty much recession proof, because like you'll still have those regulars that come across. It's just, you probably won't.
I agree. I cherish that. Like I do have such, like there is that brand loyalty there and trust. But I also like, and I agree with what you're saying, but I still think you have to be, like an example would be someone like Mark Bell. I was trying to explain why I was so stoked when he reshared one of my reels to my girlfriend. I was like showing her his Instagram. It's like we almost get the same level of interaction on a lot of posts. He's got 700,000 followers and stuff like that. But I'm like, no, but like he peaked before Instagram fitness was even a thing. Like that's how OG he is. He was one of the first powerlifting content creators, one of the first fitness content creators on YouTube. I'm pretty sure he was the first person with a dedicated facility just to have their friends. Like what Eugene Teo has, Mark Bell had this back in, like maybe when I was in high school. For sure, like very shortly after that, which is like fucking insane. And that's what I mean. He's someone where everything could collapse and new platforms would emerge and people would just search for Mark Bell because, again, he's just been relevant for so fucking long. Again, someone like Bradley Martin, I think someone like David Gray is definitely starting to get hit. Like if all his shit got deleted, he'd be able to come. Like so many people would just automatically reshare his thing and be like, here's Dave's new account. Like I know you're missing it.
Totally. But I think
a bit more work to do before I have confidence in that.
Sure.
Back to my little SWOT analysis. Me being fucking Hormozy. So one of the threats that is just perpetually over my business is just the nature of the environment where I host a lot of my content is just fundamentally unstable. But the podcast, it's such a fucking rock. It's such a rock. Like honestly, if we managed to get back up over 20,000 downloads a month, my Instagram could get fucking deleted. Wouldn't give. Oh, obviously, no, actually, yeah. And it's still effective because I did put so much effort into it. But it would just, in terms of the worry about my business, would be fucking next to none. Because again, I know I could regrow the social accounts. Obviously, a little bit devastated, like I said, just for the loss of the actual content itself and the memory. There's so many memories. But
I think I know the answer, but why do you think it's like that though? Why do you think it's such a stable?
It's not algorithm driven.
The listeners that don't really...
this is a big part of the model that I preach about in the mentorship and just generally. I've talked about it on a bunch of other people's podcasts and stuff. People say that there's no space for long form content, and I'm like podcasting is literally just the biggest, other than social media, like fucking podcasts. Like podcasts are a meme about people just like raving on and people still consuming it. And people are, can't they and YouTube, like there's been so many times where people have been like, the fucking Harvey, when was the first time you heard the YouTube gold rush was over?
Dude, I couldn't fucking tell
15 years ago, like before Google bought it. There's just it's just but
I didn't know that was an
so the thing with the algorithm is it's up and it's down and it's a little bit more random. Whereas the thing with long form content, places that are indexable, you can search for content. And they're just a little bit more stable in terms of their subscription and those subscribers seeing the content. So like I said, a podcast can't go viral. A podcast can only go viral through social media. And that's true. That's just a general rule in this current age of content creation, like how you grow long form content creation. It's also through just building trust over time as someone who's worth listening to. But that's the model. Like use short form content as a way to bring people across to your longer form content because people wonder why it takes so long to sell to people on social media, because like again, it's all just about exposures over time and relationship building. And it's the same principles that drive building a business, even in a face-to-face context. Like, how do you get a client, or how did I get a client when I was on the gym floor? You say hey to them, you try to enhance their experience in the gym. You just see if you can make their workouts better. And eventually they'll actually, when it works out well, they'll ask you to train them. And social media is the same. The only thing is there's this algorithm that's interrupting your ability to communicate with them. There's increased skepticism in the online space because people are just aware of the amount of misinformation online, so they have a more guard up. But imagine trying to win someone over. Like, even when you get someone's attention to the point where they stop scrolling, they consume your content for 10 seconds. So in real life, you have the opportunity to have like trust building sessions in 10 to 15 minute exposures. Then you go on social media, and even when you're getting traction, it takes like 6 to 12 months to potentially 2 years to build a relationship and court these people, because the exposures are so short and the nature of the environment. And that's if the algorithm doesn't fuck you and take you out of their rotation. Because there's been people's content who I've interacted with where the algorithm just stopped showing me their shit, versus say you entertain them and you win them over enough to, you get them liking your content and then you get them listening to your podcast. That's literally an hour of exposure of relationship and trust building and just like brainwashing and propaganda, even though we're just yapping away and enjoying ourselves. Like it's all part of it, right?
Yeah.
And that's why long form content creation is so valuable. And especially for the people who short form content, don't want to be like fucking reductionist on social media. Well, use social media, like the medium's the message, use it how it's meant to be fucking used, and then use it as a way to transport people over to more nuanced long form content on either YouTube or a podcast. And like I said, even from a purely business perspective, it works on so many levels because it's very effective on a business perspective. Because again, going back to where majority of our attention comes from, like Instagram is still responsible for most of the lead generation and the revenue that comes into this business, but per consumer, the podcast fucking smokes it.
Yeah.
So, and it is harder to grow, but like the long term, it's just, and it's fucking sick. You talk to people that you're interested in what they have to say. I talk to my mates and I think people like it. And anyway, so I don't know, hopefully some people who are interested in content creation, the e-commerce side of things, got something out of that.
Totally. I think it's just like, I think apart from anything else, if you want to try break it down real simply, it's just like your most hardcore fans, your most diehard lot will listen to your podcast. And so they're kind of the ones you should nurture the most, because they are, like you said before, it's easier to sell stuff repeatedly to hardcore fans. Whereas,
bro, remember what said? This is what the dodgiest band manager ever. This is she was the one that planted this seed.
Right.
Holy crap.
Right. But even, yeah, no, totally.
Because
But
coaches say to me, no one will listen to me for an hour. And I say exactly back to them what said to us in a different way. I'm like, some cunt will. Like, your mum will, won't she? And they're like, yep, my mum will listen to my podcast. I'm like, and you've got that client who's just fucking loves you, right? Don't you? Who would buy your t-shirts if you had them, and like they would listen to, anyway.
And I think for me, that's why podcasts work. I think the obvious analogy to jump to is being like an Instagram reel is a single and a podcast is an album. But actually, I think the podcast bridges the gap between the two, because you can't put an album out every week. And a podcast.
You're thinking about it. This is the exact same thought process I had. Go on, sorry.
But the podcast is great because, like, I'm assuming you and me are the same in that, like, and maybe a lot more people are in the age of YouTube and everything else. But like, you know, there's people that buy the albums, and then there's people that are looking up fucking interviews where they can every 2 seconds and trying to find in-depth fucking perspective on things. And that's what the podcast gives you. It gives you that. The mega fans and the people that want to get super gripped on it can do.
No, what you're describing is what Melbourne strength culture has, because you can have your Melbourne strength culture coach, or you might go to the gym, or you might go to their events, or you can wear the clothing, or you can listen to the podcast, or you can watch the YouTube episodes. And all of that, to launch all of that once is done, but it's just this building out of it over time. But also, like, Harvey, what you were just sort of describing, comparing like podcast episodes, albums, or whatever, it's more aggressive than what you described from the creator's perspective, because in the internet age where there's this rabid appetite the content, both driven by the consumer and the platforms. Like I think it's a horrific age for music. In some aspects, it's been democratized, like everything, by the internet, and that's beautiful. But you think how long it took us to create an EP. And even if people like, you've got your super fans, but even if it gets like traction on radio, like how long are people going to be listening to that for, the average person, before they've just moved on to something else? Whereas like to shit out a reel and for people to consume that for 24 hours, like shitting out a reel in like half an hour or something like that, like even shorter if you're really on it, being a one-take wonder and shit like that. Like the rate of creation and the rate of consumption, there's a good marriage there, but you do have to do it daily. I think to be really successful on the social media platforms, like there is a required rate of production, but that schedule, when it comes to your longer form content, it can be a much slower schedule. Like you only have to knock out one YouTube video. Some fucking YouTube creators, I think, do one a month, but that's when you're more established. I think like one a week, even starting out as a YouTube creator, or like I said, just doing podcasts. And that's something I could literally do till I roll over and die, because my point is, I don't think I enjoy social media now. I'm not naive to think that in 10 years, I might not have the same attitude towards it. And I'm sure it'll still be a big part of my overall content creation strategy. But like the podcast, like I'm pretty sure I could handle doing this till I roll over and die.
Well, that's kind of it. And I feel like the podcast is kind of that thing. I think the podcast is the least bound to a platform. I think realistically, I think it's the least kind of medium as the message in a really archetypal textbook sense of it. You know, like I think realistically, and I remember watching, I think with Logan Paul ages ago, and Logan Paul was basically saying that like, no,
he was ripping daily vlogs on YouTube.
Oh no, he was, and that's why he's such a good perspective on it. But he was kind of saying that like he's had experiences before where like back in the day, dudes with big money sat down with him and were like, look, we're launching this new platform. We've got these creators on there. We want to contract you to do X amount of videos, and you know we're just throwing this amount of money at it. And they just tried to buy an audience basically for a platform. And he was like, I've sat in these meetings and I know it's going to plummet because I've seen it plummet before. And it's just the way it goes. It's like regardless of what you think you are as a creator, the audience follows the platform. They don't follow the creators. And I think and that's just kind of it. So I think if you can diversify, or if you can have a place where your diehards go to get more of you that is completely your own, or as much your own as it can be, the stronger your foundation is, and it's not as flimsy as, you know, a fucking app that Elon Musk could go and buy and ruin. Yeah. You know, because none of us fucking know what's going to happen. You know?
And that's what I mean. You're just subject to those sorts of fluctuations. Back to my SWOT analysis, and this is sort of an adjacent sort of point now. And this is something I was talking about with Jacob in Melbourne when we were driving around. Like, I don't really get back. I get back to all the negative comments, but I don't get back to any of the nice comments. And I get so many DMs from like sick cunts, and I don't get back to them. And like I don't message my mum enough, so like I don't have too much guilt about that. But I want like there's people in the as in like I wish I had more of a cup to pour out of, to like, I wish I could get back to every single fucking DM, and for that to not completely ruin my mental health. Because like certain interactions with the GPP community, like or just people in general fill my cup, like seeing people at seminars and events and in real life, like that stuff all fills my cup. Texting people and stuff like that doesn't really fill my cup, unfortunately. But I'm like, fuck it, it'd be so good if people in the GPP community could interact with each other a bit more accessibly. And if I could just interact with people, just with individuals in the community, but just with my community on a bit of a different platform. So I was thinking about making a GPP Discord, just for anyone who wanted to be in it. Like I said, just have a place for the GPP community. So yeah, there might be something like that coming up, because that was just the other big thing I identified. Like I said, the content creation aspect of it, I feel like we're nailing like the things that we need to be doing to get where we want to be, and that's all heading in the right direction. But the community aspect is, because even I think we've talked about this between all of us, at least. I don't know if we've talked about it on the podcast, but Well, community has always been a thing that I've struggled to develop in any sort of brand, because even in the podcast, when we were getting a fuck ton of downloads back before we had the big break, like we would never get any messages or like people. It was so fucking rare to get any interaction with the audience. And even with the GPP program, I thought I would only need like 30 people in there to have people like yapping away constantly. And I think a big part of it is people look at it as like a low ticket offering that maybe I don't want to like hassle Angus to it. But I'm like, no, I want more people to be like posting their shit in there to get like a community feel, because I know everyone will like each other and everyone is pretty supportive in there. But it literally took me getting over 100 people in the community to get less than 20 people regularly posting their training updates in the chat. And I'm not surprised by that. And because another thing that I sort of believe in is the bystander effect of the community experience that a lot of people benefit from. So I sort of relate it to, you know how I'm pretty sure you guys relate to this. Not everyone will, but they'll have identified these people before. They'll have seen them. Some people at a party will stand in a group of people talking, and they'll just sit there sipping on their drink, and that's a really social experience for them. Like they're too nervous to talk, maybe, but they still feel like they've gone out and socialized because they've stood in a circle and people are talking around them. And that's true. That's why it's so important for me to get people talking in the Train Heroic chat, because I know that there's people that would never post a clip of their training, but they would like to see people who are sharing their training experience just talking about it, like in the fucking chat and stuff. And yeah, it's just an extension of that. So one, I think the GPP Discord or something like that, some sort of community platform, we have the amount of people where you could have the bystanders, but there would genuinely be enough people to where even 10% of them, if they were active, it'd be a thriving community and everyone could get the bystander effect. And but yeah, forget that cranking. Oh, boys. Just, yeah, everything's cooking.
It definitely sounds
totally. I feel that I'd never thought about the whole bystander angle before, and it's so funny because that's like totally me, and that like I never really comment on shit or interact with stuff, but like, you know, do take in quite a lot. And yeah, 100%. Such a thing.
And there's people who've left because initially why I didn't have, because I thought about starting a Discord for the Train Heroic group, because I was like, will people chat in that more than just the Train Heroic chat? Because maybe people are just on Discord a bit more generally. I didn't do it though, because I was like, I don't want people to have to download 2 apps to be a part of the GPP community. You should be able to just have the Train Heroic and get the full GPP training experience. But then, and I was like, oh, I'll have to like remove people once they've left the program, and that's a pain in the ass. But I'm like, oh no, like I still want to have those people in the community that aren't doing the GPP program, especially because I think a lot of them are still doing GPP style training. They're just like, oh, I have an idea of how I want to do it now, or yeah, just the whole thing. Like I want to grow the community aspect of it, because everyone's like the greatest thing about it's so cringe to talk about authentic content creation, but the best thing about it is you genuinely do attract like-minded people, and like that's why I know the community aspect of it would be sick, because there's heaps of funny people. There'll be great memes. I want to see people hitting big lifts in the GPP chat, or talking about driving content for the podcast. Like I want to hear from the GPP community. Who do they want us to get on? There might be some. I'm sure there are people out there who I don't have that much interest in having on the podcast, who I'm not going to get on, but there are heaps of people in the GPP community who want to hear from me interview that person. And that would make me very excited about interviewing that person. That whole idea. Yeah.
Yeah, no, 100%. There's definitely, I've seen a lot of GPP sort of creators as well, like not obviously by the name GPP, but just the way they train as well.
Yeah, like people like Alec Blennis, people like Will Rattel, like people who embody our ethos, even though they have their own brand with overlapping core values, like not the same, but it's like a different expression of it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And even like people outside of our circle, like I've seen heaps of people, I forgot that guy's name, he's bald and does like flips and stuff, but he always talks about like zertering and stuff like that. I forgot his name. But yeah, just people like that in general.
Sounds like
yeah.
Sounds like
my type of guy.
Yeah. That's what I mean.
Oh, Chris.
I'm pretty sure.
Chris Scott. Yeah, he's
Something
the
like
guy
that.
who did the hectic drop.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
It's like still
Yeah.
racking up views and getting reshared. Yeah. I'm pretty sure he
Yeah.
deleted it
Yeah,
off
no,
his
like,
own
just
page
to
because he got
see, like-
sick of the notifications.
Oh.
Crazy. While we're here and talking about the audience and all the rest, we can totally cut this if we want to. But we did get a speak pipe the other day. Do we want to do it live?
Yeah, sure.
For any audience members who don't know, there is in the episode notes of every episode, there's a link to this thing you're seeing on screen if you're watching on YouTube now. So it's like a voicemail situation. So if you've got a question for us, hit it and let us know because we actually fucking love these. It's so much fun. We got
doing actual live callers. Fuck, that would be good.
It'd be fucking hectic.
So we got a voice message from Miss. Oh, do we want to say the name?
I mean, I'm pretty sure it's a pseudonym.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think you can go anonymous if you want to. So he's all groovy. He's given us his permission. Mr. Spiraling with, is it 3 L's?
Is this going to be
Yeah.
WEC related?
That'd be nice. All right, here we go. We're playing it.
So I just found out about your podcast, and I was just wondering, overtraining or undertraining? What do you guys like? What is your opinion, or is it like seasonal for you guys? Well, I'm just curious.
Interesting.
I prefer a more minimum effective dose. Like that's my bias, like a more conservative load management strategy. I prefer to slow cook my athletes, generally speaking. There's times where a job needs to be done. But also like, because I'm not 100% clear on the question. Maybe they're asking about like what's a bigger issue for athletes or things like that. And it's because it's a bit of a controversial conversation. People are like, oh, there's no such thing as overtraining. You're just under recovering. But like at the end of the day, your capacity to recovery is finite, and your capacity to control things that influence your recovery, things like just general life stress, is finite. So yeah, I think that's the thing. I would say,
yeah.
And that's the thing, like most people, I never really refer to it as under recovering. I just say like living like a slug. Or like some people are living like a slug. Some people it's just like they're just an animal with fucking work, or their job's crazy, or they've got a young family or something like that. But most people, it's not their training. Like most people, if they had the ability to really get their lifestyle in order, like live like a samurai, you could just do the most insane workouts and it would be productive. So it's just cringe saying under recovering, because people who talk about recovery, they never mean lifestyle factors. They mean the fucking Normatec boots. So
Yeah, I mean, we probably easily being the least qualified person here to talk about this. I kind of feel like, is recovery not one of those things where you should only really start talking about it seriously if you're a fucking serious hardcore athlete? Like,
yeah,
like
in terms,
you know what I mean?
in terms of like those specific things, because like in terms of like what recovery actually is, and I think you agree that it's like lifestyle factors, and that's what you were commenting on. Yeah, but like in terms of like recovery products and
like I think by the time you're going like, oh, should I overtrain or undertrain? Like over recover, under recover is kind of like, I don't know. I just feel like if you're thinking about it that hard, you should be,
I feel,
you know, like a pro fucking athlete by that point.
I feel like the
Maybe that's
overtraining
exactly
problem is much more outside of a training problem. So it's much more of a harder thing to tackle, I guess. And if it's an undertraining problem, then it's obviously got to do with the weight room. So it's much more fixable. I mean, depending on the person. Is that what you're trying to get at? Like, but yeah.
Yeah,
like
I'm just I'm going through an epiphany right now about how much I could dial in my lifestyle if I really wanted to do some crazy training. I just started feeling immense guilt. It's mostly work, but I do.
Thank you, Mr. Spiraling. You got Angus's gears moving about his.
You got me spiraling. Yeah,
no fucking doubt.
Like things have been going good. Oh hell yeah! We just had someone else sign up to the mentorship.
Yeah, baby.
When's this podcast dropping? If this podcast happens to be dropping before May 5th, head to the link in my bio and get yourself signed up. If you like that, you got the fucking sampler at the start of this episode. I was dropping straight heat when it comes to content creation and structuring your business and whatever the fuck. And when we talk about human movement and training as well, it's not, because I had some people like, oh, is it just a business thing? Absolutely not. It's mostly about training and stuff like that. But yeah, we get around in it. Anyway, 8 weeks of the best upskill of your life. Starts May 5th. Tell you what, I've had people sign up in the first week before as well, so we can extend that intake date until May May 10th, let's go for the absolute cutoff.
Are there limited
That's
spots for it?
In theory, I would limit it if I ever had a mentorship cohort where people didn't get enough individualized attention. But remember what I was saying about the bystander effect? It's like it's a thing in the mentorship. And like I said, I used to take it way more personally, but now I realize that like not everyone's looking for that much of a there are fully people out there who will pay for the mentorship and they're seriously just looking for an answer to like one or two questions, or like there's one or two of the topics that they're buying it for. I think there's also people who've messaged me and they're like, oh, I didn't think. A lot of people don't get, especially initially, weren't getting into it for the content creation or the business structure side of things. We're like, oh, ended up getting heaps more out of that than they thought they would. So, and then like I said, there's some people who will show up to the lecture, like both the lectures where I do the repeats so more people can make it live. They'll show up to both the Q&As, make every session live. Obviously, it's like scheduling and shit like that.
Totally. Yeah. Thick. Also, just while we're on the whole audience situation, Jacob, did you get recognized?
Yeah. This was actually quite a crazy moment. So I spent a couple days down in Noosa Heads in Australia, down in Queensland.
Fucking lovely.
It was quite a good time. Had a lovely brunch at a restaurant, which I can't name the name. I don't think it was his restaurant, so I don't think he cares if he actually sort of shouts him out. But he was just he was actually a barista, I believe. Maybe he does own it, but anyway.
Oh, almost certainly the owner.
Yeah. So, nah, I don't think he was. So finished up eating breakfast. Got like too many coffees because I fucking triple ordered. So as I was leaving, I'm like, fuck, did they make me another coffee? But no, they didn't. So this guy comes up to me and goes, oh, you Jacob the GPP guy? And I'm like, yeah, crazy. And he's like, oh yeah, I'm really liking your stuff, man, on Instagram. It's really cool. I'm like, oh man, like, dude, you don't understand. Like, I didn't know.
Yeah, it makes me feel weird. Hey?
Yeah, I didn't know. Yeah. Not weird. Like, I was really like over the moon, but didn't know how to react. I was like, thanks, man. Like, I was just thanking him over again.
Because you want to show like that like my experience with that is like it's made me more excited than they were. Like initially they have the excitement because they're like, oh, seeing this person they're like, but then like you're not used to getting recognized. It's way more hectic for you at the start.
Man, my day was just like flipped on its head. I felt so happy. I had that extra sort of spring.
Yeah, it's crazy.
No, it was. Yeah, and I'm like, fuck, I'll just follow you, man. Like, I didn't know. I like wanted to give him something. Like, I don't know, I had that sort of feeling.
But you know what you do? You give back through just you keep doing the thing. Like you keep doing it because there's other people out there who have the same. Many more people who have the same level of appreciation. And I know you get a kick out of the content creation, racking up them views.
But he was like, yeah, come down to vision training or something, like not personal training, obviously, but something vision down in Noosa. So shout out to them. And yeah, it was unbelievable. And yeah, I was
come on the
mates.
Who were you with? Were you with your fam or your boys?
No, all my mates. And like,
no
way. And they're all like, oh, can I have a photo, GPP guy? It's pretty sick. Yeah. So that absolutely made the trip a 10 out of 10 for me. So yeah, I got to kick up the ass now. I'm feeling really motivated after that. So thank you.
Dude, one day, sick. Hopefully one day, I pray you're just on a date and someone comes up wearing a GPP shirt.
Dude.
God.
And
again, if you're out there, guys, make yourself known. Jacob's, he's out there.
Oh man, I'll stop whatever I'm doing. It doesn't matter. I could be driving.
Yeah. Dude, interrupt the first kiss if you fucking see him out.
Oh, yeah.
Sandwich yourself between and be like, stop. Do you know who this man really is?
Yeah.
Dude, I actually had like almost the opposite, like the weirdest experience of one of those, like very recently. I might cut this if I butcher this story because it was a fucking weird
Would you have someone trying to
bash
bash you because of something I said?
No, but I wish. But basically, we were on tour a little while ago and we were like supporting our mates band, the Vans. And so we go to this music festival on like one of our days off, like a bit outside of Melbourne. Anyway, so we played somewhere regional Victoria the night before and then went to this festival the day after. And this guy comes up to us and he's like, oh gosh, you were fucking sick last night, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, oh, sick one, man, thanks. He's like, yeah, but like, what the fuck? You didn't play like, and just starts listing all these Vans songs, like of the headliner that we didn't play.
Hectic.
And I, by this point, like, it's not even my band, so I'm just like cringing in the corner, just like, make this stop. But like Joe's just so like head on about shit, and he's like, oh dude, yeah, they're that's like, we're not the Vans, like they're like, we're the support, blah, blah, blah. And the guy's like, oh, I think we really
That's
fucked
so
up.
gnarly.
He's like, we were like so cooked last night at that gig that we left after
fair.
you guys because we thought you were the Vans, and like. Just he's like, yeah, they're like my favorite band, and we left before they even came on because we thought you guys just didn't play any of our favorite songs. It was the weirdest fucking conversation of my life.
Added detail of them being absolutely munted and actually knowing the bands makes it way funnier.
Totally. He was like, he turned to his girlfriend and was like, oh, I think we really fucked up last night. Like, bought tickets and everything.
Oh man. Have we updated everyone about push pull run?
No, we haven't. Who's going first?
I'll go first.
Right.
My client James won it, so represented the brand well. I PB'd my total technically on body weight. I wonder if I did PB my run based on formula, but I PB'd my run based on time. Actually, I should just talk about how my day went. I don't know. I reckon I had like a bit of a bug or something because I was sweating like fucking crazy 2 nights leading into push pull run. I weighed in at 77 kilos, which is a crazy low. Anyway, benched like absolute dog shit because I kept hearing this shit about like just relax your back when you're trying to make your arch, if you're trying to make it as big as possible. And I don't know. I also brought my grip in like an inch or two a week out, which I like is stuff that I know is dumb, but I just did it. And I definitely paid the price. So bench 90, and that really moved well with that setup. But in that setup, I had no ability to grind through a sticking point. It would just immediately shift towards my face. Which I just had no shot at benching. I was like failing 90 set. Like I honestly felt I had the strength if I just had my original setup. So anyway, whatever, just making excuses like an intermediate athlete. Deadlift was sweet. I pulled 230. Maybe I could have got 240. 235 definitely would have been there because I can grind and it wasn't that sticky off the floor. I'm pretty sure 240 would have been there. So
Just
that's
want to
exciting
say,
heading
just
into
to
the
add in
powerlifting
something,
competition.
all the lads from work are absolutely just mesmerized by that deadlift. Like, what is it? Almost 3 times
really?
body weight? Yeah.
Mate,
they're
it's not
like,
even that big.
dude, Angus is a
They'll,
beast.
they'll shit themselves if they go to hang out at Melbourne Strength Culture for too long.
Yeah, no,
But
like,
they had Chris Yip in there deadlifting like 300 at my body weight.
did they? Fucking hell.
Yeah,
Just give
that's some
yourself the
strong
credit.
cunts,
Come
isn't
on,
it?
you had some real.
Yeah, sorry. I should take them. Thank you very much. I really
they're like,
appreciate
nah,
that.
what a beast. They're like, what a beast.
If they see me fight, they'll throw that opinion out quick smart. And then, the run was good. I went pretty hard. I think I emptied the tank a bit better than last time in terms of like just more even pacing, especially through the middle. And I turned it on. I didn't have that big sprint at the end. I really, really tried to start emptying out the tank about 200 to 150 meters out. Because like I said, I think if you can sprint hard at the end, you probably weren't that good with your overall race economy. So I think it did a better job of that. But I'm not going for the sub 5 minute mile, 500 pound deadlift after that performance. Go 5:30 mile. I'm like, 5 minute mile, that's a while off. Still going to chase sub 1200 first, prioritize that. Or obviously make it a priority after I get out of this powerlifting comp in 2 weeks. So that was my push pull run. Jacob, do you want to talk about how yours went?
Lifting went absolutely well and swell. I'm very happy considering all the weight loss. I'm able to improve on both lifts, so the bench moved quite well. I red lighted on my 75 because I didn't fucking wait for the rack, but we just went for 80, which was great. 80 moved quite well. I think I have a bit more in there. Then we did deads. We started off with 165 or 160. That moved really well. 170 moved really well. Jumped to 180, and that also moved quite quick. I think I might hit 200 very soon. I think before
Definitely.
Before DIDS goes
200 may have even been there on the day.
I think so, yeah. So I'll definitely hit 200 very soon. And then the elephant in the room, the run. I talked a big game all this time, but yeah, look, not to cope, but yeah, definitely felt like I had some chest fucking infection going up to it because, I never felt that gas from
I was
run
surprised.
ever.
I thought you were going to go a little bit harder, so I think you were sick because everything leading into it But I also think based on formula, I even think like we're starting to realize that if we really want to improve our performance it's all about lifting and weight gain for us, because like you can run faster. Like, because we worked it out that even if we get like sub 5-minute miles, it's not going to get us into contention with the top guys if everyone shows up at the next push-pull run.
You'd
But
rather,
if we're all 10 kilos heavier, running about the same, which I could gain a fair bit of weight and it wouldn't affect my running. I'm fucking with it. But it would do my lifting well. Like, I'm going to keep lifting pretty hard coming into October. I reckon I could maybe squeeze out like at least a 245, maybe a 250 deadlift. Can I get to can't get to a 120 bench by October? Not paused, fuck. But if I can for sure pause bench 110 by October.
Yeah, I'm pretty much going benching every day because I just want to increase bench just in general. But I'm going to take the run much more seriously this time. I also don't think my prep was good, but I think I did too much hard running. So I'm actually going to put a post up soon talking about what I'm going to do for the mile. But yeah, definitely.
You could not run until the next push-pull run, just hoop and lift, and you'd probably still win the run on formula.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, but it's just more of a me
thing.
If
you gained weight.
Yeah, I know.
If you ate, well, because are you going to go into a deliberate gaining phase or just maintain?
Yeah, I'm just going to go into a gaining sort of phase. Yeah, quite gradual, so it doesn't really affect too much of my propulsive acts. But yeah, so I'm just going to put it all onto the chest infection because I'm still fucking coughing my lungs out today. Yeah, because by the prep, I should have at least gotten like a 5-minute 25, 5:20. But yeah, did not have anything on the day.
Some good runners there, Canuli as well.
Yeah, absolute beasts. Yeah, I was wailing after the run, man. I never felt so like knocked out from a run ever. But I guess it just shows the state of me.
Shout out to the people in heats 2 and 3. I swear, heats 1 and 2. Heat 3 is the only heat where people drop the fucking hammer.
Oh man.
No, I know they're battlers. Shout out to everyone. But like, come on. Well, like,
we put it all out.
It is hard to like really push. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah. Fuck. And
if I'm going to talk some shit about push pull run, that's it. I'm like, fucking run, you dogs.
Yeah. You know, Angus is pushing the hardest when
see everyone deadlifting there, and they're like fucking shaking, and blood coming out the nose.
It's two different ballgames.
Yeah, absolutely.
I loved hearing the Angus.
I love the
every 400 meters. I'm just gonna let it go.
Fighting demons.
Let it fly. But I completely get it. But yeah. But hey, one last thing before we wrap push pull run, because that's all we talk about nowadays. But my pacing strategy. This is just before I post.
You were ahead of me for a bit, weren't you?
I was, yeah. The first 200 meters is actually key. I tell you why, because I don't think any lactate builds up at all. I feel like you can just bust through the first 200. And then after the 200, you have to settle. I think you have to settle until like the last 400 to 300. And then that's when you give it a bit. Because that first 200 meters, you have to make advantage. How hard of the first
200 are you talking? Have you ever run a 10 out of 10 200?
No. Yeah, I have. I'm saying like an 8.
Okay. Yeah. Fair. Yeah.
Because I feel like you're never ever going to be that fresh ever in that race ever again.
And I'm with you in general in terms of like trying to get something out of your tendons and yeah.
Yeah. No, and like also like energy system wise, like there's no lactate at all in your, like there is obviously, but nowhere near as much build up. And that's when you slow it down. And that's when all your running preppers come into it, where you pass that 200. That's where all the hard work with all that prep is gone. That's where you're supposed to last. That's where the real killers are made, in those middle parts of the race. But yeah, anyway, that's my opinion.
Big time.
I still feel like there's another gear mentally as well.
Of course,
but I feel like I need to be within. I need to have a really good. That's the one thing that helped me this year. I actually don't think I would have PB'd if I didn't have as good of a personage. Like having Canuli just 15 meters ahead of me for most of the way, it was perfect. I was like, I just need to stay close to Canuli. I knew I'd run decent time.